Donna, thank you so much for joining us over Zoom. We're in obviously a time of lockdown still, so it would be nicer to be able to do this sort of face to face, because that's, for me, it's nicer to have that connection. But I know it's sort of, we're probably both a bit nervous, so you just hopefully relax into this, and like I say, just thank you for doing it first off. I've asked you to do an interview on it's really based around the talk 3 that we've done on the Real You project. There's a series of talks, 4 talks, and like I say, the one on the talk 3 is mainly around the SWOT analysis. We got to know each other mainly because I have been cutting your hair for a little while now, and you came into the salon at a time when sort of things weren't sort of great for you. Do you want to give us a little bit of a background of how that came about, and how did you sort of like resonate with what I was talking about the Real You project?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I came in obviously, and you started cutting my hair, and it was a time when I was quite low. I just come out of a long-term relationship, and I just didn't really know what I was doing, I suppose. And then when you started talking about the Real You project, something resonated in me, that it sounded interesting. It just sounded like something that would possibly help me to find, you know, something else, me, perhaps not, rather than the old me. I wanted to find a new me, and that the things you were talking about certainly resonated in that way. And that was all, really.
Yeah, I think so. When we first started talking, I was probably talking about the fact that we have another voice in our heads, and it's something that we're talking to our other self quite often, and it was about belief systems, and probably the fact that you didn't maybe know that you had a belief system, and you talked to yourself as much as you did. So we sort of went through those sort of things, didn't we? And I think that's where you started to think, I don't know, you know, where I'm at maybe, and how this could help. And really, I think on the back of a relationship that's sort of like broken down, we all kind of start to look a little bit more within ourselves. If we're sensible, we will, and instead of just blaming others. So would that be a correct sort of assessment of what started to happen?
Yeah, it would, because there is always that aspect when relationship break down is, do you blame yourself? Do you blame the other person? Do you constantly, and you're constantly going over and over the same things, when really, you know, it's happened, but you've got to then move on from that. And what you were talking about, to me, was a way of being able to move on from just constantly going over and over the same things. It's happened, I can't do anything about it, but I needed to then find something else to move on to, and find, you know, myself again, not how I was then. You know, learn from the past, but not dwell on the past. Yeah, I suppose.
That's brilliant. I think so. One of the things we did as well in the course and talk 2, we did something around the social self and the essential self. And I think what is great with you is, like, I think, is your essential self. When it comes out, it's brilliant and it should be celebrated. And I think in relationships, sometimes the essential self gets put down, and the social self is something that we listen to more. So it's more about like not being worthy, not being good enough, things like that, and yet forgetting who you are in yourself in that essential part. You did the questionnaire. You most of it was really good. You ticked. There's different sort of 4 choices you can do. It's sometimes, rarely, rarely, and never. Sorry, often, sometimes, rarely, never. You didn't really put any nevers down, I don't think, did you? But
no,
there was quite a few sort of often and sometimes. How did it make you feel when you were ticking often and sometimes?
It was all right, but it made me sort of look at it and think, well, I could do a little bit more, possibly. And, you know, the sometimes and the rarely, particularly, yeah, it does make you look at yourself and think, well, you know, you've got to get off your backside and yeah, do a bit more. That's not quite how I put it last time, but yeah.
I actually did
yeah,
mention it in the video, is you did actually say it gave you a kick up the arse.
it did, yeah, it did. Definitely.
So it helps. What I think sort of what it was doing is helps you focus a little bit on the areas where you know that you're actually more in your joy. So when you're ticking often, it means that you're more comfortable with yourself in those situations. When it's rarely, it gives you a chance to improve on those. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, that would be a very good assessment. Yeah, because obviously when it is often, it is things that I do, you know, enjoy and things, but the other things are sometimes things you tend to not think about, or you put off a little bit, because they are a bit more frightening than the things that you like. You tend to, you know, move towards things that you are comfortable with rather than not comfortable with.
Brilliant.
But they still need, you still need to do them. It's just, yeah, like you say, giving yourself that little kick to say, no, come on, do that, try it a bit, see how it goes, you know.
Brilliant. So then we talked after that, and we talked about doing a SWOT analysis, because, you know, I think sort of, you know, for me, what we tend to do is we just see ourselves in this 2D sort of thing. And I sort of mentioned that, you know, it'd be interesting if we actually had a camera looking at us from outside, and would we do things differently if we always were sort of videoing ourselves, let's say, sort of seeing our nuances and seeing how we react to certain things, which is really what other people see. So the SWOT analysis part of it, what we talked about is like, could you and would you speak to some of your friends and work colleagues or email them? So at first, how did you feel about that?
Oh, I didn't want to do it. It's really, it sounds easy, but it's not. It's really difficult, and I did put it off. You know, you asked me a couple of times, and the first time I looked at it, I thought about it, and I couldn't do it myself. And then you suggested asking friends, or, you know, close family or colleagues, and that's the bit that, yeah, it's the dread of what they're going to say, really. But you think, you have a degree of, you know, yourself, your strengths and your weaknesses, but actually, you know, putting them down on paper, and actually, that's the hard bit. It really is quite hard.
Actually seeing them is in real time.
Yeah, I'm wondering also what people are going to say, and, you know, actually there weren't really that many surprises, but it's that thought of, what if they say really horrible things, you know? You don't want to think about that.
So I suggested you emailed or talked to people that you were close to, that you could trust, but also sort of like give them a freedom. So you got interesting feedback back. What sort of, can you remember sort of like, you know, what you got back that sort of spoke to you in any way?
I think some of the nice things were nice, and they were true. But yeah, I was quite impressed with some of them. They said I was kind, compassionate, warm, a good listener. But they also said I was stubborn. But that was also a weakness. So, you know, and by them putting them down, I could then add some of my own, you know. Yeah. So in that sense, it's a great starting point to ask other people, and then analyze what they say, and then that helped me really to then think about what my own strengths and weaknesses were that I felt, and that helped. That was a platform really to go on, and I was then able to really look at it and think, well, no, yeah, I agree with that, but there's also that, and there's that, and there's that.
Yeah, I think sort of in the from a your strengths point of view, there was quite a lot, wasn't there? And I think, did that make you feel sort of like quite a bit more confident about yourself, let's say?
Definitely, a lot more confident, particularly because, you know, the reason you're doing it is to try and, you know, find yourself again, or that the person that's there, you know, dormant, lying beneath all the layers of everything else, you know. Yeah, so that it's quite affirming, really, that people do think that about you, and you think, well, okay, I must be all right. There must be something nice about me. So yeah, and even the weaknesses weren't that bad.
No.
So
yeah, I think sort of also we talk about sort of like in that was opportunities and maybe threats. Threats, I would say, is probably quite often your blind spots that you don't know about you that really irritate somebody else, which are great to actually find out in relationships. So moving forward, that might be a good idea in newer relationships. That might be just, can you just tell me what really irritates you, and let's have a little discussion. That doesn't mean you change totally, but at least you know what irritates people. I think also other people see opportunities in you that you might not see. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, that would be a fair assessment. And again, that helped because it did make me think about all the things that possibly I wouldn't have thought about. And for me, it was more about, doing things in my spare time that might benefit me as well as benefiting other people. Really? Taking from what people had said that were my strengths, so for me it was possibly volunteering, and that going to that sector to see how that was. So doing it in small increments, which is part of the Real You project talks about that a lot. But for me, that did really make sense because it was doing something that I'm only doing it a little bit, but if I like it, it could possibly then be a real opportunity for me.
Brilliant.
But at the minute, just do small steps and see how it goes, really.
Superb. Well, I think we'll probably end it there because I think we've discussed pretty much everything that I think that people want to hear, let's say. I'll let you add to that if you want to, but how are you feeling from how you felt like, let's say, 6 months ago?
Much better, actually, unbelievably. And again, I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm there totally, but I feel far better, and I do believe in myself a lot more. I'm finding, I'm finding that actually I'm okay, really. I'm not just, I wanted to do it so that I was Donna, not Donna the mother, not Donna the partner, not Donna the anything else. I wanted to find, something that resonated with me. And that's, and you do have to think about it. You have to think about things a lot, but it's worth it in the end because it does, it does clear up a lot of things eventually. And some things are harder to hear than others, but once you hear them, it makes sense.
But you can do something with that then, can't you? You can do something with that information. You can either choose to diss it, or you can choose to make it something that may be painful, but it's a pain that works for you. So you can actually turn it into a positive if you wish to. Life is about choices, isn't it? So
yeah, and it is about choices, and particularly I think that the lockdown in particular, I know it's hard, but it has helped in some ways because it has given me more time to think about, everything else and what I want going forward. So yeah, it's good.
Brilliant. Well, I say we'll tie it up. I can't thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you over this last sort of 6-9 months, really, and just hearing your heart. I know from what other people would say from a knowing a Donna sort of thing is that you're just incredibly kind and you're very, very funny, and I love to see that essential side of you. So it'd be great if we can, as a group of people on the Real You, that we can just support each other and just eke out bit by bit the real versions of each other. That'd be quite cool.
It would, yeah.
Brilliant. So thank you. I'll see you again soon. But on behalf of anybody that's watching this, I thank them for watching it, and we just hope that bit by bit, you mentioned it before, we talk about the 1% increments. They're the things with, life is a journey. It's not a destination. So we're not the whole thing yet. and we've got to unravel some things first before we start to see the other side. So, but I know that at least you're taking those steps. So thanks, Donna. You've been an absolute star throughout of all of this, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Right, speak to you soon.
Okay, bye.